That's the only power we got is to just pray and ask God to bless us. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, people say, yo, what's the secret to success? I'm like, God, who's my business partner? That's my business partner. That's why, yo, you know I can't do every event. I don't even curse in my music, Mr. Clarence. How am I be in a nightclub where people have artists that be saying all kind of craziness? I got love songs. I got baby making music. You know, all the other stuff, you got to go through my catalog. But I'm not performing those songs. I only perform my greatest hits. Come on now. Yo, and I go on stage with a full suit and tie, yo. Like, for real, yeah, yeah. So, like, if the wedding has whatever colors, I'm not picky. They could buy whatever for me and I'll wear it. Or they could rent the suit and I'll wear whatever they want. You know how some artists are like, I got to have this, I got to have that. Please. I don't need no fancy hotel. You give me an Airbnb. I don't need first class. I got my own little jets, and if it's cheaper to fly regular, yo, Mr. Clarence, let me tell you, I'll be in the back of the plane where the wing is at, holding on by a string. All right, we out of here. Let's go. Yo, don't laugh at me, Mr. Clarence. Come on now. Oh man. All right, so here we go. We're gonna start quick. That's freezing. It's more for time. Mm, my coffee. Eso mismo está diciendo lo mismo. Digo yo, me falta algo, el café. Dios la bendiga, mi reina. Thank you so much. Mm. Well, this is the thing, man. Look, if I go on stage with jewelry, I'm gonna charge more because I'm not gonna take my jewelry out of storage and get insurance and all that stuff. I'd rather perform without it unless it's like an arena. Does that make sense? I don't like to wear jewelry anymore. That's when I was very, very young. And you know, I wound up having problems in my marriage and all that shit. So, nah, not doing that. Not for 2026. I have a granddaughter. You know what I'm saying? My baby gonna be a year, 3 months. Yeah, everything else is prayer. Prayer is really the true key to my success. I did not find success until I found God. And I realized once I found God, I didn't have to find anything else. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. No, I have to eat slow because I have to hydrate. This, God sent this to me like directly in my hands. It takes time, and everything is an investment, and everybody may not learn or understand at the same time. So that's where the frustration comes in because you want everything to just be in synchronicity with it. You know, that's a skill that takes time. You know, it's hard to pray when you have to tell a collective, yo, we need to pray, and everybody's like, ha ha ha, yeah, yeah, whatever. Okay, I guess you don't want Porsches, Ferraris, and Lamborghinis. So that's what God has for you. I don't know what kind of God people worship, but I'm trying to tell you. I think actually, let me check. It should be on Bloomberg. I want to say 2 days ago. They were dividing the wealth by the amount of millionaires. There's something crazy like 17 plus million more new ones in the United States. That shit is happening every day. You know who has the most millionaires? China. And they make them the fastest. Power up. We could probably put that on the test. Hmm. Um, trying to wait a minute. Hmm. Hmm. This one is earlier. I have to work on new ones. Yeah. 23 million. 20. So think about it. Let's divide that by state, right? So what do you think? 23 million divided by 52. Let's do the math. Oh, go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead. Go. Okay, so let's say, all right, let's say half a million in every state. Is that a fair estimate? Okay, so let's say every state five parishes of five boroughs, right? So you have what about 100,000 millionaires? What's 10% of that? 10,000. How much do you need for your business to be successful? 100 to 1,200. They're never gonna teach you that in business school. Something so simple. I have my students so ill and so prepared. They make money to pay off for their entire college before they finish my class. You know how mad the school was at me, and I'm like, yo, you want me to teach them this, but you don't want me to teach them business? I'm gonna teach them business. I'm not gonna send them into the fucking wolves, into corporate Fortune 500. You know the stuff you got to do just in the internship with a letter of recommendation. Imagine when you don't have a letter of recommendation or you have a criminal background like me or some shit like that. It's impossible. Doors are closed. You know how many people hate that? Like, yo, he's still working with BlackRock, Blackstone. Yes, the fuck I am. 2026. Convict the fellow. Mm-hmm. Yep. What Kanye said, you can't tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing, man. Oh, wait a minute. Who's that? So again, it's preparation, it's things like that, you know. Small example, but still a valuable lesson to be learned. You cannot, you cannot force things in life. Let things happen naturally, organically. What comes fast leaves fast. Does that make sense? I don't want nothing fast. I want my success to be slow and steady. Cutting no corners. Hard work pays off. I'm old school. Every day new designs. Merchandise, a Hot Wheel, video game, t-shirt, something. All day today, what I'm gonna do is work on merchandise design. I've been putting it off, and I'm like, now it's a good time. So give me a quick assessment. What do you think? Mhm. Not only does my car know where the air is, it knows how the air is flowing. Now that works with the suspension, traction control system, everything. Everything works together. You know what I realized? I was looking at footage from the back of auction, and a lot of my favorite cars are underpowered by today's standards and metrics. Like the 550 is like 540 horsepower, something like that. 512 TR was like 470 something. Testarossa is less than 400. I have more power than that in my XCR 15. Hmm. That was my favorite car. That was my favorite car. Except the XC220, I got the other day. I got married, but still, it's more. Yeah, it's more like emotional value. You know what I mean? I would like to get more and get them restored by TWR with the white body with the wing on them. I seen the green one in Monaco. That shit's crazy. Good car, dude. Now I do want to. I want to do an engine swap on it though. Honda J Series running back. Make it a V12 with all-wheel drive. All aluminum, do everything else in carbon fiber. There's a few companies out there. I seen Magnus Walker promoting some British brand that did like a resto mod to the actual XJS coupe. All the minor stuff, right? Pretty cool. Just double check this. Mm, nice. Hmm. still have to build a convertible C8. I built the hardtop yesterday, so I could save my clients some money, but I was still close to 100,000. The only good thing is, give you the full warranty and all that, but it's hard to explain that because I'm explaining like, yo, this is a financial decision. You're doing this for business. You're not just getting the car like everybody else is getting the car. You're getting the car from an entrepreneur. So I'm telling you how to build the credit. This is what you got to do. Then you can come back. I show you whatever you want. All right, you got to build your credit 1st. You got to build it up. And remember the maintenance. If something breaks in that car, you're not talking about anything less than $500,000. But we're all adults here, yeah. We're all adults. Imagine when you buy a race car. 10,000 miles on a race car is like 40,000 miles on a regular car. Probably more. But it's between 25 and 40,000 miles. But, you know, every person, it's their, every mind is a universe. So somebody said build something else because it's big. And I said, yo, it can't be that big if it cannot invest into this investment. Just think about that for a second. If that investment was good, you'd be the first person to say, let me invest into this investment. I can't stop this investment to focus on that investment. You know what I'm saying? They have a class with their subconscious. And they forget that I'm a doctor. I have to remind them. It would be cool if life came with an instruction manual, but on the road to success, the pursuit of happiness, and I like that. You're gonna go through a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs. Have patience and pray. That's it. I have to tighten down in accounting. I'm not making as many deposits as I should. You could think about it as operating loss because it's about the bookkeeping part of it. So now I have to overcompensate. It doesn't matter how much it costs. Let me see what I have in my inventory right now. I took in a lot of trading, so a lot of customers. I came got new cars. That means we're gonna go through uh, a moment, where it's gonna become. That's just natural part of the cycle. It happens every once in a while. They're even selling like merchandise at the dealership. like like those Louis Vuitton plushes and different bags and stuff like that. Yo, a lot of new cool stuff is coming out, but you know, there's 92 Vipers with 30,000 miles going for 70,000 right now. People are paying it. It's crazy. You already know. I need to have a few in my collection. That's the Tupac card right there. Mm, look how long that took. Still loaded. Mm, that's the RXKE. You know what? Let's just run them all because they're not they're not the way that I wanted them. Well, I only have 122 cars in the for that brand. I got an E-Type, 19,000 miles, 67. It's a champagne gold tone, Tom Ford edition, 215,000 my price. I do 400,000 overseas, door to door. We only accept Bitcoin. Please hit me up on NEC 504-202-5915. I have a silver one with 49,000 miles. That one's 190,000 my price. I could do 300 on that one, and I could do 300 on the other 67, which is like a pastel green. That one has 34,000 miles. So if you take both of those, you can have the other car. Um, Silver one is 49,000 miles. Pastel green is 34,000, but you'll have access to the 19,000 mile Tom Ford joint. So we could put that, yeah, we could put that on the auction. Just give it 2 minutes, and then we'll pull it off the line. Yep. I have a 1954 Jaguar XK, 700 miles, full restoration. 160,000 my price. Let's do 275 on that car. You could put it up for 1 minute. Yeah. All the bids go through Minnect, and all the bids will go through Whatnot. Shout out to VaynerMedia. Um, I have other ones, but the condition is, you know what I'm saying? I don't even want to touch these cars. They're good cars, but they're not for my taste. You know what I'm saying? Hold on. Bendición, sobrino, ¿cómo está? Aquí en McDonald's, ¿dónde tú estás? Okay, tato. How many minutes? No. Ven. I left the lock because the truck is there. All right, that's all. Okay, let us continue. Um, F Type 2015, 70,000, 24,000 miles. My price. Orange, yellow brake calipers. Mm, STO orange, 400,000. All factory original. Actually, we could check the prices of the STOs too. Let's do this. Let's secure the network.
Snap your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free. Plus, get your biggest refund. Roughly 37 season tax refunds are up 10% in the latest
All right, let's
IRS
go
data
Bloomberg.
on average basis.
Go channel,
That's
go
a little
videos.
bit behind, I think, kind of some
And
expectations
let's
of the
go.
fiscal stimulus, but that's another thing that
Oh,
should
wait a
potentially
minute.
support the household balance sheets. And
That's
if
the
we think about
latest. That's why it came up.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon.
President Trump there raising hopes the Iran war may be nearing an end. You're watching the China Show. I'm Yvonne Mann with David Ingles.
We are counting down the open of markets in Greater China. Our top stories today, stocks across the Asia Pacific are rebounding from Monday's massive sell-off. You have oil falling as concerns ease over the war's duration. Treasuries are snapping a 5-day decline.
President Trump promising to suspend oil-related sanctions and provide naval escorts to tankers in the Strait of Hormuz as he confronts mounting economic pressure over the war.
Also ahead, full-year profit surges for Chinese battery giant CATL, boosting overseas sales as a price war rages at home.
And a closer look at how factory workers are getting left behind, even as China's export machine continues to hum.
Straight up flex 3. Official test start time 2 minutes, 5 pages, 5 paragraphs, 5 words each sentence. 5
well, we're reading a little bit better today.
5 complete spaces in
It was a pretty turbulent day of some of the wildest swings we really have seen when it comes to crude markets, maybe since the days of COVID in some ways. So, it is some of these calming, soothing words from President Trump. That's really all it took to really send oil back below $90 now.
Yeah, and you got to wonder whether the actual move in oil prices, the magnitude and the extent to which they reached about close to 120 actually then precipitated some of the walking back there as far as the rhetoric coming throughout the U.S. But it's interesting given the declines we are seeing in oil prices. And yes, by the way, it's a massive sigh of relief across these markets. It's interesting too that U.S. futures are somewhat reversing some of the gains going into the close on Monday.
I think there's still a lot of questions lingering, right? What is Iran's response going to be to all this as well? And obviously, it's going to take a while still for vessels to go through the Strait of Hormuz, right? And you talk about, China raising fuel prices and one thing. You talk about the Saudis even talking about cutting output. Certainly, there's still going to be lingering questions of how quickly those sort of vessels can go through that waterway.
Yeah, let's have a look at where we are as far as markets go. I think it's relatively accurate to say that markets currently are pricing out tail risks. We're not pricing out completely the end of the conflict. I think that's also quite telling. We're down about 9% right now on Brent. Yes, we are back to 90 in case you need to look at this twice. Let's have a look at where we are as far as the dollar is concerned. So we did start off on weaker footing. We had that spike around 90 minutes back in the Bloomberg Dollar Index. We have given up some of those gains to the current levels of 120. We'll have a conversation on gold later on as well, why it has not acted as a haven during this period of conflict here. As far as the bond markets go, so Asia is actually tracking what we had on Wall Street, although, as we were pointing out as well, some of the gains on the Wall Street session, whether that's in the bond markets or the treasury market, is reversing somewhat. There we go. Asia extending the gains overnight. And when you look at what's happening going into the Chinese market today, at least we have a window of opportunity to talk about corporate news, things like CATL, things like earnings. We are on, the trade data is untapped, so we'll be with that shortly as well. And what that perhaps tells us about the trade mix in terms of exports and imports moving forward. The 10-year yield and the steepening of the curve is at an inflation story playing out. And let's just wrap things up with a reminder that things might not be fully out in the clear. There we go. U.S. futures are down somewhat 0.25%. VIX futures are pushing a little bit higher.
Prices are hitting triple digits here. It's that might have been the trigger as to why we're seeing a bit of calming words from him on why he thinks war against Iran will end soon, and that he plans to really waive oil-related sanctions in a bid to cut fuel prices. Take a listen.
on Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
you talking some days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect,
very soon. Look,
Never lost a race.
everything they have is gone. including their leadership.
And no matter what.
In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. Of leadership we got. We're also waiving oil-related sanctions to reduce prices.
Okay,
So we have sanctions on some countries.
Financial news. Come on. I don't care about this Trump shit. Let's go.
Hours, days, and weeks.
We absolutely cannot. Trump just.
Then who knows? Maybe we won't have to put them on. There'll be so much peace.
Let's go.
Time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed.
Okay, let's bring in our team. Laura Davison, our politics editor, and on the energy space, Nicholas Lua in Singapore for us. Laura, I'll start with you. Very soon, can we quantify that in terms of hours, days, and weeks?
We absolutely cannot. Trump just said soon, and he intentionally did not specify, any time frame. He was asked, this week. He said not this week. Trump is sort of famous for saying that he's going to have something done in 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks period never comes. So I would caution everyone to take this with a little bit of a grain of caution, a grain of salt here, that this is, not a developed policy plan coming from the president. As Yvonne just mentioned, perhaps a signal to the markets to try to calm them down. But what we're really seeing from the White House, and it's important to differentiate the policy proposals dealing with the war versus the policy proposals dealing with the symptoms of the war, namely high oil prices. That's where we've seen a lot of the effort, both in terms of actual things we've heard come from the White House in terms of the easing of sanctions, the naval escorts for ships in the Strait of Hormuz. We have not heard anything from the White House about how this war will actually end. We've heard Trump suggest a lot of different things, but still not a lot of clarity on what he's looking for, whether that's regime change, whether that is more neutering of the nuclear capabilities, the weapons capabilities, the military capabilities of Iran. We still don't know. Okay, and do we know how Iran, will respond in any way? Have we heard from them on what their perspective is on all this now? We don't have a great sense of exactly what their next steps are, but they have this has been a real tit for tat scenario of Trump said, we're going to hit harder, and Iran says, great, we will hit you and your allies in the region back harder. They have shown no signs of slowing down. There is a real question as we head, into, week 2 of this war is, what are the capabilities, both of Iran? Trump has said that their, capabilities have been limited to 10% of what it was earlier. Not exactly true that number is quite accurate. They've been able to do a lot of damage with these relatively inexpensive drones. That we've heard from allies in the region that they're running out of missile interceptors. There was a meeting with defense CEOs last week to address this. There's a lot of questions about what both sides can do and how long they can sustain this.
Okay, Nicholas, can I bring you in on the oil angle? And it was, this time yesterday when we were at about 112, we went to as close as 120. We're back to 90, which is, I think, levels, I forget now, levels of last Friday. What are the steps that have been taken to ease this melt up in oil prices? What have we heard so far?
Laura's already captured all this, I think, David, in that aside from what Trump has said, like that the war is going to end soon, although not this week, we've not actually had more substantial matter beyond that, because other than that, the news that's been coming out has been super bullish, right? I think what's very clear is that yesterday, after the weekend of where we saw a lot of bullish news, Kuwait cutting production, UAE cutting production, and then yesterday Saudi cutting production. We've had a slate of bullish news that pushed oil up to, like you say, the 120s range, right? And again, let's be clear, a $30 swing now, that's been unprecedented. We've not seen that since the pandemic. And so I think the markets were looking for something that was bearish. So the one little bearish thing that Trump said, vague though it may be, send the whole world crashing down.
Do you see any relief when it comes to oil supplies and shipping lanes? Is that forthcoming now?
I would say in terms of concrete action, that's still very limited. Now, Hormuz is slightly, and I say very slightly more porous than it was like over the weekend. We've seen at least one Greek ship tanker take the risk of switching. We've seen Iranian ships continue to make the pass, but maybe that's not exactly surprising, right? So but that's it. For the rest of us, for everyone else, about their tankers who's worried about potential strikes on the tankers as they pass through Hormuz, the straits are still essentially stuck, right? So in terms of how we've actually changed, how physical flows have actually changed, they've changed very little. All we've seen is this headline moving thing that's pulled it all down.
And Nicholas, I want to use maybe an FX overlay here, just in terms of say, intervention risk when you look at the oil price, right? At 120, well, my question is, do you think we've seen this? Likely, we've seen the ceiling on 120, because at about that level, you get the White House somewhat pushing back a little bit. You get G7 coming out and saying they are prepared to do something more significant to alleviate the oil price. In other words, while we don't still yet know how this ends, have we at least seen the peak short term?
So I would say that the peak for this week, maybe this is where we've gone as high. But I would say in terms of where developments will go in the future, I'll bring you back again to what Laura said, right? In terms of concrete developments, how the war is progressing, what Trump's aims are, that's all very unclear. And so long as these big macro decisions don't get sorted, it looks like we're going to be in for a protracted conflict, right? So I think we're going to be here for a very long time. And let me say again, like in terms of actually how oil markets have been impacted, most of the crude coming out of the Gulf isn't flowing. Most of the oil products, the gasoline, the jet fuel, the diesel that people need to keep the global economy running, to keep the middle classes going on their holidays, that's not coming. And again, the Gulf is a major supplier. And so without that, like eventually all of this is going to have knock-on across the global economy, and that will be reflected in the oil prices. So is 120 the limit? I don't think so. I think we're meant for more.
All right, Nicholas, that means we got to brace for more. We'll have more from, of course, Nick coming up, our oil reporter. Also, our thanks to Laura Davison, our politics editor, on the latest when it comes to, of course, the headlines that we've been seeing from President Trump here. And coming up, we'll be just digesting the market reactions to Trump's latest comments with Adrian Zurcher of UBS. Plus, we'll look into the impact of the Iran war on China with CITIC Securities and the outlook for gold with Stanchard's Suki Cooper. And we are counting down to the open of trade in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong. This is the China Show.
Peter Piper persistently missed packages, so he scheduled his deliveries with Amazon Business. Peter Piper, and positively prospered. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
All right, China is set to join this relief rally we're seeing across the region. We are looking at 0.5% in futures, slightly lower on the 10-year yield, although, of course, the inflation print this time yesterday was really what led to that steepening if you were taking calls.
Well, actually, so far, I would say clients are relatively calm. Of course, they want to know what's going on. They want to have news flow. They want to understand the world. But we actually haven't seen too much action overall in terms of particularly no panicking, no panic selling, which I think is what we had tried to advise. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainties. There are a lot of known unknowns that might happen or not happen. And I think it's really important to have a plan, advise clients, see where they may be overexposed. They have to reduce a bit, but there are also opportunities out of that.
Can we at least say that we've seen the worst when it comes to energy prices, at least at this point, given that we have seen a lot of options, or at least people weighing and officials weighing options to really calm?
We are not experts when it comes to politics in Iran, for example. We are not probably the most best suited people to speak about US politics. What we know is if the conflict basically exists for a longer period and it will impact energy prices will feed through inflation, will feed through to growth, and therefore the longer this actually lasts, the more we actually get out of that, the quicker market can return back to normal, snapping back to the levels we maybe have seen before.
Is that the first thing to watch, though, for now? For whether things are stabilized? Is it still the oil price? Is it dollar? I mean, what is it that you're looking at?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the macroeconomic impact itself from the region is very, very small. The transmission is through higher energy prices. We know that every 10 US dollar increase will probably take off 0.2% of global GDP growth. It has an impact on US consumer, probably also around 20 basis points, 30 basis points every $10. It has an effect on gasoline prices, and it's a global price setting. Even if the US is maybe self-sustained in terms of energy, it's a price taker market. It's global pricing that is setting up, and therefore will have an impact on consumption.
I mean, if there was a silver lining to what's going on, I think I have to underscore if it could have been a reminder that there are many product trades out there. What's your advice when you look at these product trades in terms of direction as far as those popular trades were concerned?
Well, even before this crisis, we actually started to say, look, we expect broadening of equity market. We downgraded US technology, we downgraded consumer or telecommunication service in the US, which was very related to the AI trade. So we actually said you have to have more diversified approach going into 2026. Gold is quite interesting. It hasn't exactly reacted the way probably a lot of people would think it should react. And that's also an indication that there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of uncertainties through higher inflation, lower or basically stronger US dollar price. So really have a relook at the portfolio, think what has worked very well, trim back. Maybe there's some opportunities coming up. What we did over the last couple of I would say 2 weeks was we started to actually build in a bit more hedges for a stronger US dollar, despite fundamentally think the dollar should be weaker. But then we also added into, for example, higher yielding EM currencies, which are most likely or most commodity exporters, which should have basically benefit out of that as well. So that's the area actually we try to sort of navigate this